Betrayal is a weapon that wounds both the giver and the receiver, but its scars run deeper for the one who wields it. Those who craft betrayal think it's an act of power, a declaration of control over another's fate. Yet betrayal is a boomerang, circling back with precision, slicing through the illusions of victory they once celebrated. Every treachery writes a chapter in the betrayer's story, a tale that will end in darkness. The act of betrayal isn't just a single choice. It's a fracture of the soul. With every lie told, with every trust shattered, the betrayer loses a piece of themselves. It's a slow erosion, like water wearing down stone. They might bask in the fleeting satisfaction of their deceit, but beneath the surface, guilt festers, and regret waits to pounce. The clock ticks, and their mask begins to slip. Betrayal builds its own prison, brick by brick. The walls are made of paranoia, as the betrayer constantly looks over their shoulder, waiting for the retribution they know is inevitable. They trust no one, not even themselves, because they understand the weight of betrayal. How can a mind rest when it knows its actions have sown seeds of vengeance? There's no sanctuary for the betrayer, no safe haven to escape the ghosts of their deeds. Betrayal doesn't die, it lingers, haunting the corners of their existence. It shows up in unexpected moments: a friend's glance, a lover's words, a stranger's stare, reminding them of the choices they made and the trust they destroyed. The world becomes a mirror reflecting their own treachery. Betrayal is a debt that demands payment. No amount of denial can erase the weight of that demand. They may try to bury the evidence, erase the memories, rewrite the narrative, but the consequences are always waiting, patient and persistent. The betrayer doesn't just lose the people they've wronged. They lose their peace, their freedom, their humanity. The mark of betrayal is indelible. It brands the soul of the one who commits it, a scar that no apology can erase. They might convince themselves that time will heal the wounds, but time is no ally to the betrayer. Time reveals, time magnifies, time punishes. The longer they wait, the heavier the burden becomes, until it crushes them under its weight. Betrayal poisons everything it touches. The betrayer's relationships become strained, their connections hollow, their lives devoid of authenticity. They become actors in their own lives, playing roles to mask the emptiness inside. The love they seek becomes elusive. The trust they crave becomes unattainable, and the life they once dreamed of slips further out of reach. To betray is to declare war against the natural order of things. The betrayer believes they can outsmart fate, manipulate outcomes, escape accountability. But betrayal sets forces in motion that cannot be stopped. Karma may be unseen, but it is relentless, precise, and inescapable. The betrayer's downfall is not a matter of if, but when. The most chilling part of betrayal is its silence. The one betrayed moves on, finds strength, rebuilds, while the betrayer rots in their own solitude. The tables turn without warning, and the betrayer finds themselves abandoned, their cries for redemption met with indifference. The world doesn't mourn their suffering. It watches with cold detachment as justice takes its course. Betrayal writes its own ending, and no one escapes the consequences. The betrayed rise, stronger and unbroken, while the betrayer falls, consumed by the weight of their own actions. Treachery doesn't grant freedom. It chains the soul in regret, ensuring that every step forward is shadowed by the past. Betrayal has a cost, and it demands to be paid in full. Life, at its core, is a storm. Every betrayal, every heartbreak, every wound is a pocket of turbulence, shaking you to your core, daring you to spiral out of control. But the secret lies not in fighting the storm, but in rising above it. Turbulence cannot touch what soars higher. The plane doesn't ask for the winds to calm. It pierces through, unshaken, guided by the hands of its pilot. You are that pilot, and you decide where the journey takes you. Hurt is inevitable, but wallowing in its chaos is a choice. Pain tries to drag you into the storm, seducing you with the comfort of anger and despair. Yet, above the clouds, there is light, a clarity that the storm can never reach. Flying above the hurt means refusing to let it define you. It means looking down at the storm and knowing it has no power over the altitude you've chosen for yourself. Betrayal cuts deeper than most wounds because it comes from those you once trusted. The instinct is to crash, to let the betrayal ground you in bitterness and vengeance. But flight demands letting go of the weight that anchors you. Rise above the betrayal, not for them, but for yourself. You are the only constant in your journey, the only one who matters in the cockpit of your life. Anger is fire, consuming, destructive, and captivating. It can feel like fuel, but it burns out quickly, leaving you with ashes and regret. Flying above anger is not about denial. It's about mastery. The fire cannot consume what is out of reach. Use its heat to propel you, but never let it dictate your course. The plane needs focus, not fury. The skies are always turbulent for those who let others steer their journey. The key is knowing that the controls are in your hands. Those who betrayed you want to clip your wings, to see you crash, to make you doubt your ability to soar. But the higher you fly, the smaller their attempts become. The horizon stretches endlessly for those who dare to look beyond the clouds. Peace is found above the noise. In the storm, there's chaos, confusion, manipulation. But above it lies silence, a clarity that cannot be shaken. Choosing to rise above is not a sign of weakness, but of power. Those who cause the turbulence hope to see you flounder, but your flight is proof that you control your destiny, not them, not the winds, not the storm. The view from above is unmatched. Every betrayal, every hurt, every moment of doubt becomes a speck in the vastness of your journey. Flying higher isn't about forgetting what's below. It's about gaining perspective. The storm you left behind was loud, but from up here, it's insignificant. Its roar reduced to a whisper you no longer care to hear. To fly above it all is not to escape, it's to transcend. You carry the lessons with you, the scars that shaped you, the wisdom forged in the fire, but you refuse to let those lessons weigh you down. The plane ascends because you shed what no longer serves you. The storm loses its grip because you chose not to fight it, but to rise beyond it. Not everyone is meant to join you at this altitude. Some will cling to the ground, trapped in their storms, hoping to pull you down with them. But you are the pilot, and the plane is yours alone. The turbulence will try to shake you, but it cannot touch the resolve that keeps you flying. The higher you climb, the fewer voices you hear, and the clearer your path becomes. The storm rages on, but you are untouchable. Hurt, betrayal, anger, they all remain below, powerless against the one who chose to rise. The skies are yours, the controls in your hands. Let the storm watch in vain as you disappear into the light above. Betrayal answers betrayal. The mask of love is answered by the disappearance of love. Betrayal is the great unmasker. It reveals the hollowness behind words once spoken in tenderness. exposing the charade of loyalty wrapped in deceit. Love, when used as a weapon, does not wound lightly. It eviscerates. But here's the irony. Love doesn't shatter when betrayed. It vanishes. What was warm and embracing turns cold and unforgiving. And the absence left behind is more haunting than the betrayal itself. When love departs, it takes with it all the illusions that sustained the bond. The betrayer often underestimates the void they create. They expect a fight, a plea for reconciliation. But what they face is silence, an emptiness that echoes their actions back to them. Betrayal does not destroy love. It erases it, leaving only memories that sting and shadows that remind. Betrayal feeds on love's vulnerability. The mask of affection, when removed, reveals a predator that thrives on the trust it has devoured. But every predator meets its reckoning. The betrayed learns to shield themselves, to withdraw the love that once gave the betrayer power. There's no greater vengeance than the absence of what was once freely given. The betrayer is left chasing phantoms of a connection they themselves destroyed. The disappearance of love is not a loss. It is a liberation. Betrayal forces clarity, stripping away pretense, leaving behind the raw, unfiltered truth of what was and what never could be. To walk away, to let love fade, is not weakness. It is reclaiming power, a refusal to let the betrayer dictate the narrative. Every betrayal writes its own eulogy. The love that once existed becomes a ghost, haunting the betrayer, reminding them of what they had and what they lost. The betrayed, however, walks forward unburdened, leaving the ashes of that love behind. What once defined them is now a lesson, a scar, a memory with no grip on the future. Betrayal cannot exist without trust, just as the mask of love cannot exist without a willing participant. But the moment betrayal strikes, the mask shatters and love evaporates. The bond that once seemed unbreakable becomes a cautionary tale, a reminder of the cost of misplaced faith. The absence of love is a mirror for the betrayer. They see not the person they betrayed, but the reflection of their own inadequacies. Love's departure leaves a void that no amount of excuses or justifications can fill. The betrayed moves forward. The betrayer stagnates, trapped in the shadow of their own actions. The mask of love, when torn away, reveals not just the betrayer's face, but their soul, empty, desperate, devoid of light. The disappearance of love is the price paid for betrayal, and it is a debt that accrues interest. The betrayer learns too late that love, once gone, never returns. Betrayal teaches the betrayed resilience, clarity, and the strength to move forward unencumbered. The disappearance of love is not an end, but a beginning. It is a cleansing, a release, a step towards something better, something untouchable by deceit. And in the absence of love, the betrayed finds their own worth, untethered from the wounds inflicted. The vanishing of love leaves no room for second chances. Betrayal answers betrayal, and the betrayer is left with nothing but the weight of their actions. In law, a man is guilty when he violates the rights of others. In ethics, he is guilty if he only thinks of doing so. Intent is the birthplace of every betrayal. Before the blade of action strikes, the thought is forged in the dark corners of the mind. The law punishes what is seen, but ethics condemns what festers in silence. A man who entertains treachery in his thoughts has already sown the seeds of guilt long before his actions bear their poisoned fruit. Guilt begins where morality whispers its warnings. The line between thought and deed is thin, but it exists, dividing those who simply think of harm from those who commit it. Yet, in that moment of consideration, a betrayal against oneself occurs. To think of violating another is to breach one's own integrity, to crack the foundation of one's character. A man who plots betrayal in his mind believes himself untouchable. He imagines his thoughts are his own, safe from judgment. But the mind is not a fortress. It leaks intentions through subtle words, through glances, through actions too calculated to be innocent. The guilty mind betrays itself long before it harms others. There is no absolution in thought alone. To dwell on betrayal is to poison the well from which all actions flow. The man who toys with unethical thoughts believes he can contain them, that they will remain ideas, intangible and harmless. But thoughts grow roots, and those roots will crack the strongest of facades. The law waits for evidence, for proof that harm was done. Ethics, however, demands accountability the moment intent is born. Guilt is not a matter of action. It is the willingness to disregard another's dignity for one's own gain. The betrayer is condemned, not when he acts, but when he chooses to consider betrayal an option. Ethical guilt is a shadow that lingers, unseen, but ever present. It corrupts the mind, warps the spirit, and ensures that even unacted betrayal leaves scars. The man who allows treachery into his thoughts is forever haunted by what could have been, by the person he might have become had he acted differently. To betray in thought is to deny the humanity of another, to strip them of their inherent worth in the quiet chambers of one's mind. It is a crime that leaves no visible evidence, but stains the soul irreparably. The man who considers betrayal is as guilty as the man who wields the dagger, for both have chosen to abandon their moral compass. There is no peace for the man who betrays through thought alone. His guilt festers, a constant reminder of his capacity for harm. The absence of action does not absolve him. It only ensures that his punishment comes from within, relentless and unyielding. The betrayer often believes his thoughts are fleeting, inconsequential. Yet, every thought plants a seed, and those seeds grow into the forest of his character. To think of violating another's rights is to nurture a future betrayal, to prepare the stage for inevitable harm. In ethics, there is no escape from intent. The man who allows betrayal into his thoughts betrays not only others, but himself. He becomes a prisoner of his own guilt, trapped in a cycle of self-loathing and denial. The mind cannot lie to itself forever. Eventually, the guilt will surface, demanding reckoning. The highest, most decisive experience is to be alone with one's own self. You must be alone to find out what supports you, when you find that you cannot support yourself. Only this experience can give you an indestructible foundation. Solitude is the crucible of transformation. It strips away the distractions, the noise, the clamor of outside opinions, leaving you face to face with the raw essence of who you are. There is no mask to wear, no lies to hide behind when you're alone. In this void, you confront your fears, your strengths, your weaknesses, and most of all, your reality. The weight of this silence can either crush you or forge you into something indestructible. The greatest betrayals are not the ones inflicted by others, but those we commit against ourselves. To live a life molded by others' expectations is to deny your soul its voice. Solitude forces a reckoning, a trial of the self. When no one is left to lean on, you find whether your foundation is built on stone or sand. And if it is sand, solitude gives you the tools to rebuild. People fear being alone because it reveals their vulnerabilities. But those vulnerabilities are the blueprint for resilience. Solitude doesn't destroy you. It reveals the cracks that need to be sealed, the weaknesses that need to be strengthened. To emerge from this trial is to carry a strength that no betrayal can shatter. The silence of solitude is louder than any accusation, any betrayal. It is a mirror reflecting your inner world, forcing you to see what you've hidden from yourself. It is in this silence that the betrayed find their redemption. The emptiness left by betrayal becomes the space to rebuild, to reclaim power and purpose. Solitude is not a punishment. It is a sanctuary. It is the place where you learn that you don't need the approval, the validation, or the presence of others to thrive. It teaches you that self-respect and self-reliance are the only things no one can take away from you. Once you've learned this, you become untouchable. The world admires strength, but often misunderstands its origin. Strength is not born in the company of others, but in the quiet of your own thoughts. It is forged when you stand alone, without excuses, without distractions, and choose to rise. Solitude does not make you weak. It makes you self-sufficient, and that is terrifying to those who betrayed you. To stand alone is to understand that your worth is not determined by anyone else. Solitude gives you the courage to set boundaries, to refuse to settle for anything less than what you deserve. In this space, you don't just survive betrayal, you transcend it. Those who sought to break you are left watching as you become someone they can no longer reach. Betrayal creates a vacuum, a silence that screams to be filled. Most people rush to fill it with distractions, relationships, anything to avoid the confrontation with themselves. But those who embrace solitude find something far greater. They find their core, their essence, and from this place, they rebuild not just a life, but a fortress. The person who emerges from solitude is unrecognizable to those who once sought to manipulate them. The betrayed becomes the unshakable, the untouchable, because they have faced the darkest parts of themselves and found light. Solitude is not an escape. It is a return to what is real and eternal within you. Solitude is the ultimate betrayal to those who betrayed you. It denies them the satisfaction of seeing you crumble. It robs them of their power because you reclaim every piece of yourself that you once gave away. They can't escape the consequences of betrayal. For solitude teaches you to rise above the ashes of their deceit.